Paul Mozina. And if you come to the podium and if you gave your name and address for the record as you start. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Paul Mozina. I live at 767 Roca Street in Ashland, and I'd like to call your attention to it's called MF32 Billings Ranch site. It's a wireless communication facility. The application was received in September, and then was incomplete and was accepted in about November 9th. And the Development Services Planner, Mr. Skiles, is working on this application, and he was kind enough to notify the public, which wasn't required, but he did notify the public of the arrival of the application, and people began responding in mass. There were almost 600 petitions signed opposing the tower. There were about 80 or so letters that were received by Mr. Skiles expressing, it was 79-1 in opposition to the tower. And I live in Ashland, and just so you know what we're talking about, when you get off exit 19 and get on South Valley View Road, take a right, you're heading into Ashland, you take a left on 99, you're heading into town. That tower, that 14-story tower, 150 feet tall, that 14-story tower is going to be right across from the Paradise Supply on 99, about maybe 3 blocks from the intersection of 99 and South Valley View, about 3 blocks east and south towards town. It's going to be right on your left. It's on the very tip of an EFU, exclusive farm use property, a 24-acre parcel. It's at the very, it comes to a point there. It's at the very tip of that. It's 14 stories tall. And this is a runaway train, really. I mean, we haven't had time to really reflect on the property value impact it's going to have. As you know, the 17-acre Grand Terrace land parcel was just annexed by the city of Ashland, and they're going to be putting up a 230 apartment complex. That's literally right across the street from a 14-story, tower that's going to be basically bisecting the view of the Cascades. Grizzly Peak. As you're coming up 99, you look to your left, you're going to see this tower completely splitting the skyline, and if you're coming the other direction, it's going to be just as bad. Now, we're not allowed, according to the 1996 Telecommunications Act, to protest the environmental harm, but the applicant asserts that there will be no impact on the cost of farming practices, that there will be no environmental harm, but they provide no documentation to support that claim that there won't be any environmental harm. This is like a runaway train, and we're also dealing with something called the shot clock, as you well know, that the county is required to respond by April 8th. And I'm simply asking you if there's any way that you can slow this down so that we can get more community engagement. There wasn't enough time in that 10-day period between when Mr. Skiles notified the surrounding neighborhood. There wasn't enough time for them to really marshal the opposition, which is extremely strong and prevalent in the area. And we would like to, if you can exert any influence in the Development Services Department, Mr. Skiles in particular, to say, can we slow this down? Because this is the gateway to Ashland. You come off 19, you're on your way into town, and there's going to be this 14-story, 150-foot tall monopine tower right next up to Highway 99. I mean, it's right there. The tallest building in the neighborhood is 2 stories or at the most, right? This is going to be a terrible eyesore. And when people see this, they're going to go, what were they thinking? Why did they allow this to proceed? And what happened was, the applicant, working with AT&T, they defined what they call a search ring. And we have to defer to the engineers from AT&T. They said, we looked at this, and here's the perimeter of which a tower must be placed within the search ring. Well, we don't know what that science is. We don't know how they concluded that search ring. And then within that search ring, they said, there's no property owners that want this tower except the owner of the Billings Ranch, the Medela Bison Incorporated. The only person that will allow this tower, the tower, is Mr. Thaddeus Gala, the owner of this property. And Mr. Gala said, the only place you can put it is right on the tip of this property, because I don't want it anywhere near my homestead up by the railroad trestle. I want it way down there. He forced them to pick a site as far away from his homestead as possible on the perimeter of the property, which is right next to Highway 99. You have to, next time you drive on 99, look where Paradise Supply is and look immediately to your left. That tower is going to be at the very tip of that EFU property. And so what I'm asking you to consider is this is going to affect property values. This is going to affect the aesthetics of people's experience as they enter this neck of the woods. We need to slow this. This is a runaway train. We need to slow this process down. And I do appreciate your kind attention this morning, and thank you very much for listening. And I encourage you to discuss this with Mr. Skiles and say, we need to put the brakes on this and get more community feedback before we proceed with our decision. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Messina. Anybody else?